So this afternoon's sessions, we're going to start with the diving into the distribution module, or distribution process, I should say, and then followed by manufacturing, and then we'll have Nektari, Olivia and her team present the SEI, the BI piece, and then we'll look at the how to select, basically tips and tricks of how to select your ERP solution, talk about the what to expect on a Next3 project, and we'll wrap it up with some key features and some takeaways from today. So let's, on the distribution, so from an Next3 perspective, right, what are the enablers for the distribution industry, right? What kind of functions, I mean, we keep, you keep hearing since, I keep repeating since this morning that X3 is really focused around discrete process manufacturing, wholesale distribution. So from a distribution perspective, right, from a supply chain, you want deep functionality in pricing. You want, obviously, you want the functionality of MRP based on your demand to run, you know, what you should be procuring and when. Things like economic order quantities, you know, purchase requests, RFQs, those are some of the functions from a supply chain perspective, all embedded within X3. From the operations perspective, I mean, workflows, X3 comes with a workflow engine. There's notifications and workflow automation that's possible within X3. Operations, we think about quality control, so throughout the product, products can have different statuses. So a product can have an A status for approve, Q status for quarantine or quality control, or R for rejected. And we'll touch base a little bit on that today in this session, how you can prevent movements of inventory that are, let's say, in Q status or quarantine. And you can also force the users to record a quality control record. So for instance, as you're receiving, let's say, I don't know whether it's perishable or non-perishable, but receiving goods from suppliers, or as you're assembling, recording productions for goods, if you need to run some tests and then, you know, qualify the quality of the product, you can actually set up X3 so it's automatically turning the status of the product as a Q status as quarantine, and then generating a quality control records for the quality control, the QC departments to go in, you know, put in the values, and then either release the goods if they actually pass quality control, or mark them as rejected. And again, from a rejections perspective, you can limit the movement, so preventing the sales of quarantine, or preventing the sales or movements of items that are rejected. Sales and marketing, I mean, there is a light or basic customer relations, CRM, embedded with X3. So when we're dealing with prospects, recording, tracking calls, tracking opportunities within X3, and then doing quotes, turning quotes into orders. After sales support as well. So there's an after sales module that's as part of the customer support module. So you're selling perhaps a piece of equipment, or you're selling goods, you then want to track the work, or track feedback, or track what has to be done for that product. So we can do that as well. On the sales side as well, allocations. So we see this in distribution. So having the ability to reserve stock for specific customers, having the ability to allocate orders, either doing a global allocation. So if I have, let's say I have an order for 1,000, I have 1,000 or 1,500 on hand, do I want to basically make sure that nobody else is going to, you know, can basically get those parts? So I can do it from a global allocation, meaning that, you know, I know what I have on orders. I want to make sure I don't go negative. But if you're dealing with serialized or lot tracked items, you can even go down to specific or detailed allocation, meaning, you know, you can build rules, for instance, where you can say like first in, first out, like especially if you're dealing with perishable goods. Maybe if you're dealing in the electronics, you want specific batch or specific lots of goods. So you can basically manage allocations. From a warehouse perspective, again, there's that word again. Multi-sites, if you're dealing with, perhaps you have multiple sites where you're storing inventory, maybe you have some manufacturing sites, maybe you have some warehouse or distribution sites. Maybe those sites are actually 3PLs, third-party warehouse. You want to control inventory there as well. Location management, bin tracking, location management, location capacity. You can actually set up, you build your own, every site, you can build your own diagram, if you will, right, of how that site is structured, rows, aisles, how the depth and all that good stuff. If there's limitations as well, maybe there's capacity limitations, maybe there's limitations in storing, you're not going to store ice cream where, it's above a certain temperature. So you can actually limit which types of goods can be stored within each location. And there's also space or size capacity as well, so you can manage that. License plating in the warehouse, so as you're picking, packing, palletizing, so license plating is an important one as well. Again, more advanced functions from the warehousing side. Pack size, I could be dealing with perhaps a customer A wants their product packed in a certain fashion, customer B an alternate packing units. So there's, again, there's that word multi, right? Multi units of measure. You could be buying, selling, assembling, packaging, right, in all different units of measure, right? So pack size could be whatever, like a case or a pallet of maybe a certain customers want them stack 6 rows high, and another customer has them 5 rows high. So you can be as specific as that. So when the orders comes in, when it comes time to prepare the packing, do the preparation for the packing slips and the picking process, you can basically identify that and share this with the warehouse people. Mobility, ADC stands for automatic data collection. I don't necessarily have a device here. I will show a screen a bit later on. With X3, it does come embedded with some automatic data collection screens. So it's, again, being web-based, they've basically built screens build screens to fit ruggedized device or basically mobile device. It's an area with the ADC side. You'll notice that data links that I put in here. Data links, if you're looking for more advanced warehouse management things like our features, for example, wave picking, then you would go towards data links. They're third-party solutions that works closely with X3. But the last few years, Sage has invested a lot of times, one through GraphQL for integration into the product, but they've also spent a lot of time enhancing the functionality available through the ADC, through the mobile device, the automatic data collection. Things like LPNs or license plate, for instance, up to last year was not available through the ADC, now it is. So they've gone from version 7, we're currently technically on version 12, so 2023 R1 right now with X3. They've gone from the green screens to Windows-based screens for the mobile automation. So again, they're almost at par. They're not quite there yet. There's still some features that are not available through the ADC screens, and that's where I've put the data links in there. But for like basic shop floor control, picking, packing, the ADC would do the trick. And then planning and forecasting, right? And again, from a distribution, being able to go and put in demand planning and enter your forecastings when you're running your MRP, it can consider those demand. Yes, go ahead.
So do you have a separate function for logistics and customs? So on a global operation, if you're constantly moving things around, logistics is an entirely different package.
Yep. There's some logistics workflow embedded in X3 as well. We also have a third party that integrates into carriers, for instance, as well. So, everything from a carrier perspective as well. Logistics, the answer is yes. So we can basically build a workflow to deal with logistics. From a carrier integration as well, technically, X3 has the ability to go and put in the rates and basically maintain all the rates for the carriers, but it's almost like reinventing the wheel. It's so much maintenance maintaining X3 where it becomes almost a no-brainer to go and basically implement those. There's a few third-party solutions that are available for freight carrier integration. There's also available, like when you're talking about logistics, talking about container management, for instance, on the inbound. So as you're doing purchase requests, being able to, there's actually a pretty cool enhancements with X3 where visually you can track containers where they're physically located. So you can actually see them on their vessels and where they're at. So I'm 5 minutes in, or there's 5 minutes left? No, we're actually running 15 minutes behind, so add 15 minutes. So I've got 20 left. Thank you. So as far as the container management, so as the idea is, tagging POs to a container and then tracking that container as far as where it's at. Okay. Anyway, so we'll these are again just high level of the type of functionality, because there's no way in 30 minutes or now 20 minutes left that I can show you all those features. But what I want to do now is just go into the product. As I mentioned this morning, we're going to look at in this section is perhaps sell jalapeno bean dips from a site NA24. Okay. So again, sites are tied to company. So the idea is we'll go in and sell the jalapeno bean dips. The product is actually set up to be manufactured from site NA21, so a separate site. And the idea is to look at, when we do the sales order, look at the pricing. What are the pricing functionality? How did it calculate the price? Look at the actual items, how it's set up. How it's actually set up to be an inter-site transfer. So as I'm selling this, if I'm actually short, instead of buying it externally, I'm actually getting it from my sister location who's actually manufacturing it. And then on the subsequent session, we'll look at on the next session, we'll look at how do we then take that demand and then generate a work order, run MRP, and then do the tracking on that production order. So if you look at so I'll log into, I'm actually logged in already in X3 as mod X3, same user as this morning. Let's go and create a sales order. So navigate to my homepage as we saw this morning. If I look at the process manufacturing, the workflow from this morning, right? So I looked at my process manufacturing. Let's just look at at a sales order. So we're going to put in a sales order. I'll use the standard screen. We spoke about the different screens available. From here, if I wanted to repeat an order that's already in the system, so maybe I have recurring business from a customer, what I could do is just remove this, delete, and then modify anything I need to modify accordingly on the line side, and just click on my, basically click on my new button. Let me just shift function F11. There you go. Click on the new button, and then it would basically trigger a new transaction. So I can go and recall, this goes from purchasing, this goes from any records, that you just remove the actual record number, and then you can regenerate a new order. So I'm just gonna go click on new. Right now, the sales site is NA21. As I mentioned, we're gonna sell from site NA24. Right now, my default site for mod X3, I can set it up user specific to say, okay, what is my sales site? What is my purchasing site? What is my manufacturing site? They're all set up on the background as NA21, so that's why I have to change it. But if you have users that are always working on it from a specific site, you can set that up by default. I'm going to sell to NA007, which is Williams Distributors. I'll spare you from all the details of the header fields here, and then we're going to sell the FIN 301 is what we're going to sell, the jalapeno bean dip. So now I could have searched on the product. I could have searched by name, by category, by different means. I just happen to know that it's FIN 301. So the jalapeno bean dip in this case is, think about this as we're selling boxes of 24 8 ounces bean dips, okay? So that'll become important for when we're into the manufacturing. So let's go in and sell, I don't know, I'm gonna just add 12 units, okay? From a sales standpoint, these are cases. If that customer was tied to a specific sales unit, that could actually trigger a different selling unit. But we're gonna sell 12 units here. Ordered quantity is 12. The gross price is 25. Now from a pricing perspective, if I click on the ellipses here and I look at the price explanation, this would tell me if there was X3 allows you to set up pricing structures. You could have a base price, less discounts, less whatever. You can maintain programs as well. You can do pricing on whatever, pricing on volume, pricing on You could have contract pricing, you can have future pricing, when you could have multiple price lists and multiple price entries for a product, and then you can also set priorities, which one, which rules, what is the first rule, second rule, third rule, right, and go through that logic. I'll again, due to the short amount of time right now, I mean, I can't go in too much detail, but as I usually tell clients on pricing, it's like bring it on. I mean, whatever your pricing scheme is or pricing model, X3 can certainly accommodate it. But again, like things like future pricing, I know there's limitations. If you think about Sage 300, you can't do future pricing. There's one price list, and then that's it, right? You can have a sales price for a period of time, but I can't say, well, starting in 2 months, that's going to be the new price. Or even looking at historical price, you just don't have this, right? So in X3, you have the whole pricing history, and then you can basically do advanced or future pricing. Okay. Let's just go and create the item, create the order. So right now, the order is set up. So let's look at the product record. So from the line, we're going to look at the product. So I'm going to basically come in here under product, and I'll jump to the product. So instead of closing all that screen, jumping into the product, I can just drill down right from here. So what we saw earlier, what we talked about earlier this morning is all the different sections, right? A few things I want to point out, again, from this in relations to distribution. So that you can add an image to the item. If it's got a service life, perishable items, you can set up expiry dates. You can do statistical groups. So we talked about dimensions this morning, but you can also do grouping. So if you're looking at categories or subcategories, those groups, we're actually seeing 3 on the screen right now, but you could have up to 5 statistical groups, and they can be dependent. So for instance, right now, the group 1 is 30, which is food, and then depending on what I select on my first group 2 could basically filter based on what are the different types of food that I can pick, and then so on for group 3, I guess. So you can build dependencies. You can set up manage product lines. You can put in UPC codes or barcodes. Okay. In this case, the product is stock managed. So as opposed, you could also set up non-stock items, but this product is stock managed. It can, this one here actually has lot management turned on, right? So we can do lot management. We can force lot management, or you can make it optional. In this case, we're making it a mandatory. It's got a lot sequence number, so you define what is the logic if you want to automatically assign a lot number to it, whether when you receive it or when you record or track a production. It can also be serialized, same concept on the serialized side. In this case, it's marked as loaded. We can do a version management. In this case, it's not version managed, but we could do a version management of items. What else? Units of measure. So as you'll notice right now, we're stocking in cases. We can have weighting units of measure, volume units of measure, talking about capacity from a location management perspective. That could come into play. What is my purchasing unit, my sales unit, statistical unit, right? So there's all kinds of different ways that I can track in different units of measure. And then the packing units, right? Again, this is my pallet here. Regular pallet is basically stacked with 16 cases in this case, okay? I can also limit whether I'm allowing to actually unpack for let's say you have a full pallet, am I actually allowing to break a pallet to sell by unit, for instance, right? You can be that specific. Accounting code that drives just your which accounts, your cost of sales, and all that good stuff. What else I wanted to mention? If I look at the sales, after sales, customers, in the customer sections, again, this is where if there's anything specific about that item and the customer, in this case, if you look at NE007, guess what? My sales unit is in cases. This is where I go and specify that these guys or this organization actually buys it in that units of measure. Okay, you can select specific packaging units as well. Tie in their product number to your product number. Okay, on the purchasing side, same thing. what is my firm horizon, planning horizon from the planning standpoint, from the MRP. Okay. Suppliers, same thing. So which are my suppliers that I can buy this from? Right now, I'm looking at a product record, and then I'll drill in, if you will, to the product site. So again, remember, multi-sites. Every site, for instance, site A may do location management, bin tracking. Site B may not be location management or bin tracking, right? So by site, there's some of the settings that can be specific to this, okay? Instance, I mean, you have a distribution site from, let's say Halifax, and you have a separate distribution fax in BC. Chances are you're going to have separate suppliers, right? Different suppliers, or at the very least, different lead time to get your product in, right? So everything can be specified by product site. If you look at what else? Scrolling down. Everything from a food perspective, I mean, there's SDS sheets as well that you can tag to this. There is a third party or an enhancement solution from Processions as well. If you're into food, pharmaceutical, you can it's basically an enhancement that are fully embedded with X3. And you can then define, maybe customer A wants certain specs, customer B is fine with other specs. So you can be really granular as far as what am I able to sell to each customers. Even from a quality control perspective, you can create your own quality control question sheets or technical sheets, and then based on the results, maybe a customer will accept a certain, let's say pH levels into the product, but customer B will tolerate a different level. So you can be quite specific as far as what you're able to sell to which customer. Okay, and then let me just scroll to the continue with modifications. I'm going to cancel this modifications here. Let me just go back at the product here for a sec. What I wanted to show you here is the site FIN to the beans. If I look at the product sites. So I want to look at I just want to show you the product sites for the setup for NA024. So it is managed, it is, what I have is I've turned the quality control management on. So, it's changeable control. What that means is when I actually receive the products or track the assembly of the goods, I have nothing like having my sister-in-law saying, okay, 5 minutes, brother-in-law, you're up. Yeah, we're good. So you can basically force the status to be Q as quarantine. So you're going to force a test on it. Or if it's changeable, so when I actually do a receipt or if I track my production, then I can say, you know what, I know that technically I'm supposed to do a test, but you know what, I've done it, I'm good, we're good to go. So we can actually change the status to an A status. So we'll leave it as changeable control for now. And what I've done is I've actually tagged a technical sheet, a QC sheet on this. So when I actually receive the product, it's going to force me to go do a QC test on it. And I've actually got location management, and I actually have a default location or a bin to store this to. Okay. So the next thing that I wanted to do is, because we're going to run MRP on this, if you look at the demand planning, so the sales forecasting, I wanted to show, so right now we're looking at the jalapeno bean dip for NA024. I've created a forecast. Week 1, I'm planning to sell 5 per week, basically. Okay, my monthly total is, and again, they're cases. Okay, and if I actually that's right. Sorry, let me go back here. There's one more thing that I wanted to show you is on the product site for that item, it's actually set up to be, let me just reduce resolution. Fighting for real estate here. Let me just look at site NA24. And if I look at the product site, NA24, if I look at the planning, that item from an MRP perspective my suggestion type is inner site. What are my options? It could be, well, no suggestions, so I'm not running MRP on this. It could be purchase, if I'm actually buying this from an external supplier. If I'm manufacturing this product from site 21, because remember, we're selling out of 24, but we're actually manufacturing from site 21. Again, same product, but when I run MRP, what is it going to suggest? So if I look at the N24, so right now I'm saying it's an inner site, and that reorder site is actually NE21. So when if I'm short on hand at site 24, it's going to generate a transfer request to site 21. And with this, again, intercompany, or in this case, they happen to be in the same company, but with this inner site, I actually have a business partner or supplier and customer tied to each of the sites. So what it's going to do is when I run MRP, I can go and trigger a PO from site, or transfer request, or a purchase order from site 24 to 21. And on the flip side, the sales order from site 21 to 24 will be created. So then from a process perspective, you can ship and receive on the other end. Okay? And then you can also have, in this case, for site 24, there's no minimum stock, there's no economic quantities. So if I go here, and let's just go and run MRP. Now, MRP would be run automatically, or would be scheduled to run every night. We're just going to force it here. So I'm going to run MRP. Again, from an MRP perspective, just for lack of time, there's no time to review the settings, but there's all kinds of things you can consider or not consider when you run your MRP. I'm going to run it for both sides. So if I run this, I wish that all MRPs would run this fast, but there's not a whole lot of data in this VM. But some of you, if you're running MRP in your current systems, this could run for hours. So now, if I look at my purchasing workbench, and let's look at this, I can limit the type of transactions that I see for this. I'm going to look at this from site NE24, okay, and let's do a search here. So if I look at the site NE24, what I see in my, let's just maximize this. So if I look at the NE24, I can see my order, I can see a plain quantity of 22. Where did the 22 come from? My 22 came from my 15, it came from, just hold on here for a sec. It came from my 12 from the orders, and it came from my minimum stock of 10 at the product level. When I looked at minimum stock, it was actually at the other product site. So it basically has a suggestions of 22, right? I don't have, if I actually drill down on this, and I go to the, actually I think I can drill down from here. No, maybe not. I thought I could drill down from product sites. If I look at stock, I can see that I've got 12 on sales orders, okay? And if I actually look at my, I can drill down to look at my stock by status, would give me if there's any, like right now I've got none on hand. And then if I did that by stock by site as well, I mean, right now it would show me that I've got no stock for this item. Okay, so I'm going to go in and trigger from my workbench. I'm going to trigger a transfer request. Okay, so let's go in here. Just minimize this here for a sec, and I'm going to go here and go and trigger a. Why is it not? Here's my search. Of course, criteria. Include transfer requirements. Okay. I understand why it wasn't reload the table. I think I've gone into my wrong. I'm looking at site NE24. I'm looking at product, the right product. Terry, if you see something that I'm doing wrong, it's looking at transferring from NE21. And you know what? Right here, and I'm just going to click on generate and select my first one. Okay. So what it did is it actually did create the purchase order, and then it created the sales order on the other side. So because I had this set up as an inter-site transfer and set up the partner as the site as NE21, So if I go down to my sales order and I go to my full entry, and let's look at this site, or let's look at orders that were taken in today. So there's my order. So this is the first, again, remember, like this is multi-site, multi-company. So the first order is my external order, right? So I've got this product ordered for NE007. My second one is for sold to site NE0024. So what it did is it triggered the PO, triggered the sales order from the other side, and then those two are now tied together. Okay? So, yeah, good question. So you're saying that from the same location, one day you could be manufacturing it, the next day you could be purchasing it? Yeah, you could set up your preferences. First of all, from an MRP perspective, I'm going to say when we set up from a planning perspective, that's what's going to drive the MRP, the suggestion. You can always, providing that the item at the category level, okay, so first of all, let me just go back to the product here. A couple of things on that. So the short answer is yes, but if you go to the product and look at the jalapeno bean dip, when you look at the category, I'm going to drill down on category. There's the flow types, so you can limit which flow types. So are we allowing to buy, are we allowing to sell, are we allowing to manufacture, to deliver, and subcontract? So what type of items? So item categories becomes important. So now providing that you have bought and manufactured, that's one thing. The second thing is at the supplier level, you would add the supplier that you would be purchasing from the outside, and then, or suppliers if you had multiple sites, and then you could manually go and trigger a PO if you wanted to. Now, again, then the question becomes, is at your product site level, what is your preferences, right? If your preferences is to manufacture, then I would suggest you set up the planning as a manufactured items, but nothing would prevent you from right-click or from generating a manual PO for that, for external supplier. It's just from an MRP perspective, what is it, right? What do you want to do, right? Because the system can't guess what you're thinking today or what you're feeling, unless there's perhaps logics to when would you decide to manufacture versus purchase, right? But the short answer is yes, you could, providing that the flow types are available for bought, sold, manufactured, or for bought and manufactured in this case.
Sorry, so when you create the PO, when the PO is created from the sales order side, is it automatically generated, or is it sending a message to the purchasing group to create the PO?
When we looked at earlier on, right? So we ran MRP, okay, and then we looked at let me just go back to the homepage here. So we ran MRP. Then there's two workbench, right? There's a purchasing workbench which will drive what type of transactions I'm seeing, what type of demand, and then there's the manufacturing workbench, which from a production perspective. So from how do you know what you need to buy? When I look at this complete, this is what we're looking at earlier on, is if I look at my NE24 right now and do a search. Now, mind you, I didn't rerun MRP, but actually did know that I actually took care of the demand for the first 22, right? Which is the 10 minimum stock and then 12 on orders. But if I want, so it's from here, from running MRP, that you would go in and then generate. There's ways to group things by suppliers, by the way, so you can mass create the POs instead of doing line by line, or you can just select and then generate what the recommendation is. So it's from this screen. When I hit the generate earlier on, automatically did the PO from NE24 to NE21, and because it was an inner site, and on the back end there's further mapping that needs to happen between the inner site. So a PO automatically can create a sales order because it recognizes that NE24 is an inter site, or it could be an intercompany. They don't have to be from the same company. Make sense? Okay. Now let's flip over to NE21. So right now, if we look at the planning workbench, the manufacturing workbench for site 21, okay, and I do a search, it's going to have tons of items, right? Guess what? My NE21 is a full manufacturing, so there's all kinds of products. I could come in and limit it to my FIN 301 if I'm a planner and I want to. I've got Denis on the line that's a big jalapeno bean dip fan, and he's interested in knowing the demand, right? And now, if you look at the what it's suggesting for my jalapeno bean dip, there's a work order suggested. WOS means work order suggested. There could be a WOF for firm. But in this case, the system is suggesting to me that I manufacture 37. Why 37? It's actually the 12. It's actually the 22 from the demand. And it's actually, when I look at my, if I look at the product, hold on here. If I look at the, let me just open up the products here. So if I look at my product from my product sites, and I'll look at the product for site 21. So if I look at the product for site 21 in my planning, FIN 301, NE20, not NZ, that's why. Need stronger glasses or better resolution, but this makes more sense. Okay, so I do have a safety stock of 650, okay? And my EOQ, my economic order quantity is 175, but just pay attention to the safety stocks of 650, because when I now look at the item, let me go back to the product line here. And close this, go back to my order. Actually, if I look at the stock inquiries, let me look at stock by site. So if I look at the stock by site for FIN 301, I just want to show you that and I can pick which statuses. I'm going to say all status. I'm going to do a search. So right now, there's 650 is the internal stock. There's 613 available. I've got 22 on sales orders, so it's going to look at bringing up my values back to 650, basically, right? So that's why it's recognizing my minimum stock. It's also recognizing my previous demand, and then will basically suggest to trigger an MO for the difference. Okay. So right now, let's generate the manufacturing order from this. So I'm going to look at the manufacturing workbench. NE021, and let's do FIN 301. Oops, FIN 301, and do a search. Okay, so there's my 37 remaining. Yeah, that's right. It's actually 22 on the 22 from the demand from the other site, 12 on the sales order, 10 minimum stock, and then 15 to bring the minimum stock up to 650 for site NE21. And then from here, I can go in and then do a plan and initiate, or I can do a grouping. Now again, remember, I'm looking at this NE21. NE21 is set up as a manufacturing site. So when I actually go and plan and initiate, it's going to look at generating a work order, a production order, okay? I can just put it on the plan, or if I'm ready to release it, I can go in and release the order. Okay, so right now it's actually marked as a firm order, and then if I look at the work order right now, oops, not this. Sorry, let's pick the. I'm just going to pick the full entry. So if I pick the full entry, and again I could search by, and you'll notice in here, right? Like I've got product sites. See, again, multi-sites. So I'm seeing multiple companies or multiple sites in this case. So I'm just going to look at the ones for today. So I can easily tag so I'm going to search for and again, I could limit it. You know what? Let's do this. So if I go to on the right-hand side and go to advanced selection, because I'm always working for site NE21, I'm going to go here and go pick production site NE21. I'm going to say that I only want to see work orders for site NE021. I'm going to memorize this, and I'm going to basically call this STD for standard. So the next time I go in, It's fine and okay. And now guess what? I'm only seeing work orders for site, let me scroll to the left here, for site NE21. So I get that, again, by user, I can basically predefine filters. And if I actually exited this and then went back into my work orders, technically all I should see, if I did this correctly, and all I'm seeing now is that NE, because that advanced selection got stored as a standard selection. Again, all by user based. Okay, so now it did a work order for 37, okay? A few things from a manufacturing perspective. Now let's look at the bill of materials for this product. Okay, so let's go back to the bill of material, to the main screen. If I look at the BOM for FIN 301, so my BOM, we can do different BOM codes. Maybe there's different types, flavors of recipes. We can have major and minor, right? So you can basically do versioning with this. You can, is the BOM in development? Is it available to use? So as you're working on developing that BOM, you can prevent it from being used on a manufacturing order. What is the quantity base? So right now, again, we're manufacturing 24 cases of 24 8 ounces, right? So keep that in mind. And then you can basically decide that BOM is valid for, from a date to a date. And then here are the components. You can have multiple components. I have, in this case, think about a jalapeno bean dip. I'm gonna need some dip. I'm gonna need a container, right? I'm gonna need a lid. I'm gonna need a 24 packs, I'm gonna need a label, and I'm gonna need a carton, maybe to put this together, right? So this is where you would put in your material. You would, pick, they have different units of measure. That's one thing. You would put in your quantities. Quantities can be built, if you're into a formulation world, quantities can even be formulas or percentages as opposed to quantities. What else? They can be set as proportional. So therefore, the more if you're thinking about lids or label, well, if I need 5 cases, I'm going to need 5 labels. I'm going to need 5 lids. There might be a fix as well. So if I know that when I actually, break the cover of whatever it is, maybe it's paint or maybe it's whatever it is, there's an additive that no matter how many I produce, I'm going to be consuming. So that could be a fixed quantity. So that's the first part about the components. Then the second part is the actual routing. So now this is where you can put it through multiple operations at multiple work centers, right, and at multiple sites. So this is where, I don't know if Armin's still in the room, but I mean, yeah, Armin's in the back. So these guys are set up so they have a, actually they're using, I just remembered that they're using a subcontracting BOM, but we have another site that we're actually using different operations. And part of the assembly, the top assembly is actually the main site, but the operations for sub-assemblies or for sub-process are actually at subcontracting sites. Again, work centers is tied to a site, and the work center is where you would go in and tie in the, the capacity, like the schedule, when are they available, when are they running, okay? So let me just see here if I can drill into the cost center, work centers, right? If you look at the work centers, what is my structure? I mean, what kind of shifts they're running? Or are there constraints? So is there, from a capacity planning standpoint, or maybe there's no constraints, it's unlimited. It's like, if I can order 1 million, they'll figure it out, they'll make it happen. Do I want to include this in my rough cut capacity reporting? What type of work center is it? Is it machine, labor, subcontracting? Right? And then are there capacity variation, holidays, or maybe summer months they can produce less, winter months, right? So there's all kinds of things you can do from the work centers themselves. Okay? Again, you can, in this case, it's a pretty simple process. It's a one-step, one operation. Every product is tied to that single operation. Scheduling, I know, sorry, your name is Jimmy. Sorry, Jimmy. Yeah, Jimmy was asking about the scheduling. So Sage X3, as a third party, it's actually Sedapta. they do have a web scheduling solution available as well. So there's means to tie in, again, all the rules from the work centers and all the scheduling rules here into this SADAPTA. And the idea is that, okay, here's my demand, here's what I have as work orders, whether they're firm or plain. And then the web scheduling allows you to do, order smoothing and like basically reallocations of where do I start and end. So, and once you've got, and you have different like what if scenarios, and once you're, that web scheduling, once that schedule is finalized, then you basically bring it back to Sage, and then it'll actually update the start and end date and all that schedule within Sage X3.
What's that scheduling software called?
It's Sage Web Scheduling, but the company is SADAPTA. Yeah, and we'll coordinate a time to look at this closely, but the idea is that you push it there. It's a powerful engine to allow you to figure out when and how, and then the idea is that once you have those schedule approved, bring the data back in X3, and when I say bring it back, and there's a native bridge, and it's basically a click of a button, and then you basically update your manufacturing order in Sage. So the other thing other than routing, and again, you can have multiple routing per BOM. The other thing I want to mention as well is the multi-level. So in this case, this BOM, so this bill of material as a top assembly of the actual bean, the bean dip, the mix, right? You have the container, the lid, the label, the carton. But guess what? This bean dip is a separate process for assembly, right? So it's actually as a sub-assembly, and within the actual dip itself, it has a sub-assembly for spices, right? Now, you can go multi-level deep. Those sub-assemblies in this case are set up as regular assemblies, if you will. They're not set up as phantom BOMs. If you wanted to, the idea of the phantom BOM is if you wanted to assemble this all together, but instead of bringing in all of the recipes or the ingredients for the sub-assemblies every time you build a new BOM, right? It's almost like a template, if you will. So if you wanted those to be all assembled all together into one process, perhaps there's multiple operation. But what you could do is for item, let's say INT 301, if we actually drove down to the product, let's say we drill down to INT 301, INT 301 right now is marked as Inter, as a category. And if I drill down to category INTER, you'll notice that my category type phantom is not checked. So if phantom was checked, that would be a phantom BOM, so it would not suggest to produce a separate manufacturing order, right, for those sub-assemblies, right? So again, if I mark that INT 301 as a phantom, it doesn't prevent me from manually generating an MO for that sub-assembly, but from an MRP perspective, and when I release an MO or generate a manufacturing order for my FIN 301, my actual bean dip, my cases, it'll look basically for assembled ingredients or assembled dip. Okay, so again, just the concept of phantom BOMs. Okay, so I'm gonna go into. I'm trying to figure out what else I wanted to talk about before. So now my MO is done. I'm just gonna go in and report production. So I'm gonna track production. So I'll go production tracking. Let's just go standard complete tracking. Now from a tracking perspective, the other thing I wanted to show you is as you're building the BOM, do you want to allow to change the quantities of like materials, change the standard from the operation standpoint, or basically say, you know what, it's almost like doing a backflush. You say, whatever is the recipe is what we're gonna be producing. I don't even want to allow deviation. So yeah, that's all optional. So in this case, I'm gonna do a complete tracking. So I'm gonna assume that all operations, all material was consumed, and I'm gonna report the assembly of, let me create a new here. So let's look at the order. Let's look at today's order, the MO we just created. There's my MO, okay? And as I just go through here, right, I'm tracking 37 cases. So if I keep on going for, right, if I go down here, and guess what? Now, from a tracking of my components. So if I just scroll down here, I've got my components here, okay? Now it's forcing me to, this item is actually in red. Why? Because it's asking me to, this was lot track, so it's asking me for what is the lot of that item, okay? So I'm gonna basically just go there. Actually, the other thing as well you'll notice is I've actually set my item to as quality control changeable. So at this stage, I could go and change the status, but by default, it's going to be marked as quarantine. And the item also was tied to a quality control record or technical record. So it's going to be forcing me to put in some quality control details. Okay. Now let's see if I can do this right. I'm going to basically store this. Now, what it's asking me right now is at that item FIN 301 at site NE21 is location managed, right? It's asking me, where are you going to put this away? I could set up a default. I could basically say, you know what, automatically put this away in this storage place. I'm gonna manually put it in, so there was none selected, right? And then which lot do I want to assign for this? So for that, I could say, you know what, just do the next lot number and then generate automatically. Okay. And then there's also the concept of lot complement. So if there's additional fields that in this case, this is a perishable food. So it's going to assume at the item record, it's probably marked for 180 days for shelf life. And I'm just going to accept all the defaults and go okay. And now I'm able to, and I can see that there's potentially an issue with my sub-assemblies here. But anyway, so right now I've just reported production for those 37 units at site NE21. Okay. Now, if I go back and I sell 5, if I go back and look at my main site and my landing page and go to the QC request, again, just another example of gadgets that I can have on my main page. And if you look at this page, there should be a product FIN 37, right? So this line here, notice the status, it's a Q status. So quality control could have a dashboard and say, you know what, oh, there's another item that we need to do QC on. Again, because the item was set up to be tracked, QC manageable, and then we've also assigned the default status in the stock movement rules. We've set up the item to be Q as default. So now if I go and actually click on the, I think if I actually click on the analysis and go standard. So now what I would do is go and put in my details for the test. And again, the quality, we didn't get a chance to look at how you would build your questions, but if you go into, let me go into this one right here. So if you look at the quality record, those questions, whatever questions that you would have for the test is you would build. So I'm just going to say yes in this case, and I'm going to say that the alpha value is A, that's fine. Again, pH is 7. You get to pick what are the questions, and you also get to pick what is the standard, what actually passes and what doesn't pass this, right? Because after that, it's one thing to enter the results of the QC, and then am I going to release this? So when I go to the quality detailed record, so now I've captured the results, and what do I want to do for the items? Do I want to release them into an A status, or do I basically want to reject them, right? And you'll notice that there's sub-statuses as well. Okay, so I'm going to basically mark them as A. And again, the default and the item movement rules for that item, it's actually set up to be stored at the STO location type, STO001 bin, and then I could save it, okay? And now if I actually save this, you'll notice that my quality control record is gone. So again, from a QC perspective, they would just look at this and say, yep, here's another test, here's what we gotta do. So capture the results, release the goods or reject the goods. And now if I go to my sales order from, let me go to my main page here and look at the sales order. And I look at my sales order from today. right? So there's my sales order from today. And then these are the 37, if I look at the lines, these are my 22 items in this case. We manufactured 37, 22 of them were for my site NA24. So I will just go in and basically do an allocation. So now I'm able to actually allocate stock to it, right? And then if I do the, we could do at this stage, we could prepare the picking slip, or we can just print the delivery or prepare the delivery. So I'm going to assume that they're all being delivered. And following the process, or in this case, I'm delivering 22, and I'm going to validate the delivery. So that's going to basically release the 22 from my stock, my NA21. Okay. Now, a few things. If I go to my site if I go to my site NA24, this is where we'd go in and do a PO receipt, because it's an inter-site transfer, and then I could go and ship that goods. If I actually go in, into the site NA21, and from a traceability perspective, I want to see where, like, either where that product went or what are the lots that it came from. So let me just look at the traceability on the quality management. I want to look at the traceability right here. So if I pick the product FIN 301, just bear with me for a sec. You would typically have a lot already. I forgot to, let's look at the sales order here. I think you can see it here. I can look at the last red, which is this one here. I'll look at the line. And if I scroll to the right, that should tell me which lot, maybe not. Of course. That's fine. I'm just going to have to cheat on this one. So you would basically put in the lot, right? So right now I'm going to do a FIN 301. Almost there, Sylvie. Thank you. And pick a lot. Okay. What I want to show you here from a backward and forward traceability, right? Grab an item, pick a lot. In this case, you got to remember there's some sub-assemblies involved in this, right? So you want to know from, especially where it's food related, you want to know from that lot what potentially went wrong, right? Maybe there's an issue with that lot because the lid, or maybe it's the actual sub-assemblies, right? So if I actually go backwards from this item, that FIN 301, if I look at these are all of the other items and sub-assemblies that are affected just from that lot. If I do a forward and select, then where did that product, where did I ship or transfer that product, right? So you have full traceability from a lot tracking perspective, whether it's right from the raw material standpoint, the components, or at the assembly or at the sales, you're able to go back and forth. Whether it's, in this case, it's lot, could be the same for serialized items. Again, this is just a teaser on manufacturing. I mean, I know there's, we typically spend, Jeff, a couple of hours just on manufacturing or a couple of hours just on distribution, demo in X3. Hopefully you kind of get the sense of, the kind of functionality that, that is provided with X3 from a distribution and manufacturing standpoint. Any questions, or does that make sense? Again, there's a lot, it's like go, and a bit of cheating. Yeah, just give me a sec. Yeah, there's the ADC. Yeah, so the ADC, the automatic data collection, can basically capture information and actually on consuming the information and reporting with the next session, actually with Nectari, that they have mobile apps, but it's from capturing movements of inventory, tracking production, shop floor. There's the ADC or data links as well for more advanced warehouse management. Yeah, that's a good question. So you would input, you would build your demand or input your demand, right? Set the demand plan in X3. Now, SEI, Sage Enterprise Intelligence, could be the tool to actually say, what is my demand, right? What am I going to base it on, right? So as far as doing analysis and say, what is the plan? SEI would be the tool to build the plan. And then the idea would be to say, okay, now let's import it into X3 as far as build the actual demand. Now, the one thing I didn't show you is as far as the demand planning, you can also include firm and sales order firm and sales order suggested. You can also show those in your plan and help you build it. But as far as tools, like this is like you need a tool to actually first build that demand and then input it in there so the MRP can factor it.